Paul, tell me, tell me a little bit about what happened today.
Yeah, you know what? The good folks at Owasco were really able to help us out, and what we've started to create here at the Cobra Campground is what's going to become the COVID-19 Respite Center. What's the design of this is going to create a spot for our emergency responders, police, fire, ambulance, or paramedics I should say, as well as some of the doctors, nurses, and healthcare staff. So you're going to see a few trailers coming in here. The goal is that should anybody have to isolate, they'll be able to isolate here. All these trailers will be completely self-enclosed. They'll have everything they need, all of the essentials will be here. We have a logistics officer created out of one of our auxiliaries who will be operating this with the town staff, Julie Van Jones. And the goal here is to create a safe and as best an environment for somebody who can't go home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the good folks at Owasco donated these two trailers, and that was amazing that they came through over Easter weekends to get these all-inclusive units set up, all water, all sewer, everything set up. The town's been amazing. Lucy was amazing. They got all of the power, all of the water, everything done over the Easter weekend. So here we are at the beginning of what is going to be what we think will be a really amazing spot for a really poor circumstance.
I guess hoping for the best, preparing for the worst?
Yeah, we always have to be one step ahead. So as you know, over the Easter weekend, we did stumble into 2 incidents in our community that required 2 firefighters and a police officer to be quarantined. Another 2 officers had to be self-monitoring. So we were able to use the breakers, and John over at the Breakers Motel on the Lake has been just phenomenal. And this is going to work in concert with that. So the goal, we set those things up in advance. You can't move quickly if you haven't been organized and planned. So the emergency measures group has been meeting every day, and one of the things we immediately realized is that we needed to have a spot like this. So the plan came together really quickly actually, and then when we had our first incident here in Cobourg with Cobourg Fire and Cobourg Police, we quickly said, okay, enough's enough, let's get this done. So here we spent Easter weekend, and now here we are on a Tuesday, and we're almost ready to go.
Tell me about how, if you can, I guess, tell me about the frustration on some levels.
Yeah, it's been a really busy, frustrating weekend. So I'll just finish this part off. You know, we're going to create fences all around here. I see a lot of people driving through and walking through. This is going to be locked down, so I'm just asking the community to be patient with us and understand that we're working hand in hand with the town to be prepared for our emergency service personnel, because you never know when it happens. So this weekend it happened. This weekend we had 2 calls almost simultaneously. We had one of our officers get involved in a drug arrest and seized more drugs, more cocaine, more fentanyl, more cash, more meth, and that person was arrested, and that person was at risk to have COVID. That officer, doing amazing police work again for our community, didn't have a chance to put all his PPE on, and here we are. So we had that officer isolate. We've had test results, which is good news that those test results are negative, but we're really concerned about some of the false negatives. So that officer is going to quarantine for 14 days to keep him and his family and the rest of our officers safe. And it's a tragic, almost a tragedy, in that we have to do that for our people, and that people who are charged are in the community, and then the people who are keeping our community safe kind of have to isolate. But it's really important for the officer's family and the rest of his family at work that we make sure that there's no false negative here, and we're going to monitor that, and if we can change it before the 14 days we will, but that's probably unlikely. The firefighters were involved in another call with some of our police officers as well. That call is really a medical, very unfortunate, tragic circumstances, and that person did end up passing away, and our sympathies go to the family. But given that, and given the low risk to almost no risk that was, once we got the negative results, those folks were able to return home and just monitor their health for any, as we all are doing currently. So yeah, we have 1 officer now, which is not uncommon across the province. Many officers, many services are into the same circumstances. It's not an easy time. I have contact with that member daily. The great support from our police association, the Cobra Police Association, and the president has been phenomenal throughout this. And this is the kind of setup, and this is the kind of community support. We had the folks at Just Brew It. Glenn Keeling has donated a bunch of Keurigs and coffee pods for the guys that be set up here. We're going to make this as livable as we can.
If it's possible, and if this was the right way about it, and again, this is all if, but I mean, the officer was in quarantine, and yet the person that may have or may not have was out walking about. That would be frustrating for everybody involved.
Sure, sure, and that got my members a bit worked up this morning. So, and I understand that, I truly do. So, what we have to really be clear of is two systems, and we've talked about that many times. The court system is also undergoing their own response to COVID and how they're going to manage this. So the court system is the court system. So this individual was released into the community. I would suspect he would have self-isolated as he would have been directed by the hospital when he had his test taken. I don't know, and I won't comment to it. All I do know is that I have a duty to protect this member and his family first and foremost. And that's why we had the breaker system in place. We had everything we needed in place, and that's why we're here today, because we're planning for what might come. Hopefully I never use one of these trailers. That's the best thing. So it is frustrating, but then again, I have to extend the protection of all of my staff. We're a small service. Other small services have seen entire platoons wiped out when it comes through a platoon. So we have to really engage it and monitor it, and I know it's not a really good situation for our officer, but I have to keep the community spread, my officers' families, and this particular officer's family first and foremost in my mind, and that's what we're doing. We're really cared about our kids, not so much us. Us as police officers, we signed up for this, and the officers who represent our shoulder flash and are out there serving the community every day, they deserve all the credit. I'm lucky to have those men and women working for me.
Last question, if you can touch on it. If you can't, don't worry, it's not like we're live, but can you talk a little bit about, because it got brought up, you cannot surf?
Yeah, sure, surfing, yeah. So we're all struggling through this, right? So this is we're trying to say very clearly, stay home. And we're seeing people out walking, and Coburg, I thought, made a good decision in allowing people to walk through parks, not set up in parks. Surfing is kind of setting up. So there are already bylaws in place about jumping off the pier and everything else, so that's part of it. The beaches are closed for intents and purposes. They're not walking through, they're actually using it as a recreational spot, and if they haven't been charged, they'll be able to charge moving forward.